All right. It's Friday.
Finally, Friday. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, we can be happy about that. That's good. All right, let's call this special meeting of the Marion County Board of Supervisors to order. Mr. Grandia.
Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Mark Ramey,
Here.
Steve McCombs.
Here.
I would entertain a motion on today's agenda.
Make motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
All right, on to business. This is hopefully the last day of budget conversations. We've got a lot of items to cover. Just so everybody knows, we have some presentations leading up to about 11 o'clock. We have scheduled a budget wrap up at 11. That could go on to the afternoon. So it just depends on what decisions remain to be done or remain to be completed. And we'll get as much of this handled today as we can. We may, if it extends to lunch, we may take a recess and let people get lunch or get some coffee or something like that. Leading off, Mr. Edwards, Conservation. Welcome this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that. In front of you is my annual budget request packet, kind of a creature of habit. So you've seen this numerous years in a row, but let's go ahead and start on the green section, the financial breakdown. So the total budget request is $1,789,499. The green numbers represent the current fiscal year. So you'll see that's an increase of $64,420 or roughly 3.73%. That includes the 10% health insurance, and I did use the 5% salary increase across the board. That being said, there's a couple of notations. Whenever we hire a new park ranger, they have a 4-year catch-up period, so then they would make the same as the rest of the park rangers. I currently have one ranger that is at that point, so you'll see his is reflected as a 7.34% increase. That catches him up to the rest of the park rangers, and their salary is reflected in that highlighted number at the end there. Also, we have an administrative assistant that was hired last August. Hers is 6.98. That would include a February the end of her orientation is in February, so she would receive a pay increase at that point in time. Then the 5% would kick in July 1. So, and again, her numbers reflected there as highlighted. The maintenance tech position that we have for this year, we hope to hire last year. Didn't happen just due to work schedule and things. We hope to get that position filled in March. And over the last several months, there's been a number of county boards that have advertised for maintenance tech positions, and their average salary is around 52, 53, give or take. So I upped that 3% this year over the 50 I had currently. And then there, if we hire them in March, their 6-month orientation period we've done around September, I would just roll that 5% at that point in time. So that would actually be an increase for 16 months roughly. So instead of going 2.5 and 2.5, I just did a 5.
Sure.
That.
Okay.
So again, that number is reflected in that highlighted number. So any questions on that? Does that explanation make sense to you?
Steve, Keisha?
Yeah. All right, let's go down to Conservation Department generated budget revenue. Camping fees, shelter house rental, pavilion rental. That is going to be $605,518, which is an increase of just shy of $61,000 over our current fiscal year, or roughly 11.18%. Couple things on that. One of it is we have a increase in user rates coming for 24-25, and based on camper numbers and rentals. So I went back 3 years, took the average number of camper days, which is right around 20,000 per year, and figured the increase of our user fees. And then I backed that off $20,000. So I'd rather come in and tell you I'm going to generate an additional 60 and generate 80 than tell you I'm gonna generate 60 and I generate 30. So I'm trying to be on the conservative end of that. So I backed that off about $20,000 of what I really anticipate we're gonna take in.
Okay.
So, online reservation fees, that is fees that are paid when people make reservations. Right now, we probably average a little over 4,000 reservations through the course of a fiscal year, which would rank us number one for county boards in the state of Iowa. So I upped that a little bit because we've already hit some of those marks currently. Conservation reserve account, I did back that out $50,000. Right now we have 100,000 in the budget. I backed that out to 50,000 because we're doing a substantial drawdown currently as we are remodeling our 7 cabins at Cordova. Basically a complete overhaul, exterior siding's done, new flooring, new kitchens, new bathrooms, new lighting, complete rework because the 2-bedroom cabins are 29 years old. The 3-bedroom cabins are 23 years old. So they were due for a facelift, but we're going to draw down about $600,000 out of that account. So I wanted to start building that back again, because what that fund is most of our cabin rentals go into that. And that allows us to do major projects like overhauling the cabins along with road. You know, if we have to do a road or something like that, that's 300,000 or 400,000, we pull it out of there. So I don't have to come back and ask for, say, lost funds or help from you guys. So that's a really good fund for us. State excise tax, that's just the tax we have to pay on having cabins. That we're in good shape on that. So total revenue in the budget would be $708,018, or an increase of just shy of 17,000, or 2.1%. And again, we took 50,000 of the increase out and are putting it back in the reserve account. So that makes sense?
We have to pay the state taxes
Yeah,
to
we
have
do.
cabins on our own property?
Yeah, we do.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
You didn't
what
think there'd
about
be-
okay, couple questions
Sure.
before I forget. What about the taxes for those cabins on top? Like you do the hotel motel. Has that ever been?
We don't do
No,
hotel
We
motel.
don't, okay, we
No.
don't do those.
Nope.
And you know, I'm gonna ask this, but the online, we use a service. Is there any, have we still looking at possibly doing that? Having Mitchip, you know, talking about
Yep.
handling that in-house.
Yeah, we were gonna go over that this winter and see if that's a move that we want to make. Right now, you know, since we use the state online service, we pay about, it varies, 18 to 19,000 a year in fees to, I'll call it our state agency. If we were to switch over after the initial investment, then the cost would reduce significantly and we would retain estimating about 15,000 per year. So yeah, we're taking a long, serious look at that. But we want it to be a better mousetrap than what we have now. Because again, if we take in 4,000 reservations and we have issues with those, that can be a lot of issues. But again, that savings is there as long as, again, it's a better mousetrap and it's more user friendly. Sometimes it's hard to navigate our state site. But in talking with them, I think that there's real merit to them because we'd be kind of on the ground floor. They work with a couple other counties in the
Correct.
conservation realm. Not to the extent that we would need them with all of our reservations and all of our facilities online. But if we can save that kind of money year after year and put it back in development, that's a no-brainer.
Okay.
So yeah, we're still taking a look at that. I appreciate
Okay.
the
I'd
question.
appreciate that.
So, I've broken it down into funds as well. So Fund 1 would be 838,278. So that would be an increase of just over 29,000 over the current fiscal year, or 3.61%. Fund 2 would be an increase of a little over 18,000 or 8.12%. So if we add those all together, total funds 1 and 2 would be $1,081,499. So that's an increase of $47,502, or roughly the entire budget is roughly 60.43% of that. And the next page would be the total revenue in the budget would be just over 708,000, or right at 40% of our budget. So off to the side, I showed you kind of a line item of what the 708,000 would entail. And again, I'm trying to be conservative on the camping end of it, because again, I'd like to tell you 60 and get 80, then 60 and give you 40. So that would account for the entire budget. Any questions on that makeup? So it's a 60-40 split, basically, where it's been pretty much the last few years. Okay, if we go to the major projects tab, it's going to sound like I'm Tyler up here talking about road projects, but it's not, it's still me. So, in Cordova Park, the entrance road to the 3-bedroom cabins, what we're proposing is a full depth reclamation and then a 4-inch overlay. That road is roughly 1,000 feet long by 20 feet wide. And we estimate the cost to be roughly 130,000. Last time anything was done to that road was in 2007. We seal coated it. So that's been 17 years ago. Gets a lot of traffic in those 3-bedroom cabins. So, the next page just showed, and this is nothing new to Steve, obviously, he should probably come up here and go through this, but, this just shows the road we did years ago at Cordova, where they do a complete, bring in a milling machine, basically tear your road up, put a binder with it, relay it, smooth it, and put your asphalt over the top of it. So that's basically what a full depth reclamation is in layman's terms. Second major project, Roberts Creek West Campground Entrance Road. We've got a section of concrete that needs to be removed and replaced. Excuse me, that's roughly 215 feet by 20 foot. We figure about $50,000 to do that. That was poured in 2011 with FEMA funds. You remember back in 2011, we had a high water, a lot of rain. We had slumpage on the ditches as well. So that road went to pot when we had all kinds of camping units that get heavier every year. So we redid that. This year, it got a lot worse on the cracks, and we think it's due to everything was so dry. And once it started to crack, those heavy units kept coming up into the park, and it just kept cracking and cracking. So we need to replace that and probably do some more preventative drainage in that, core some of those areas out and put more rock as a sub base to keep that from, cracking again when we redo that. So, but yeah, it got a lot worse this year. And again, camping units continually get bigger and heavier going up those roads. So we're actually going to increase the depth of the concrete a little bit, see if we can, counteract that. So, Marion County, next page is Marion County Park Hill Road. Again, full depth reclamation with a 4-inch overlay. We're estimating that cost of just over 122,000. That road was installed in 1985. So what's that, about 40 years ago? It was gravel before that. And if we don't do something with it now, it'll probably revert back to gravel because it's on its way now. That road gets a tremendous amount of use, just in general park use, but then April through July, we have the Knoxville Little League that is in session. So it gets a ton of use. So,
And we on the Little League, we just allow them to come and play at the Little League, correct?
correct.
There's
Yeah,
no fee there, correct?
They
Okay.
maintain the fields and then we
Okay.
maintain outside the fields.
Do they still provide proof of insurance for that,
They
Steve?
do,
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Has there been any conversation with Little League? I'm so far removed from it. Is it a growing program, not a growing program? I mean, at one time, I know we had talked about them potentially looking for other locations.
Yeah, I think that and again, I'm kind of like you, Mark. I'm fairly far removed from it as well, so I don't have any kids there. But it seems like the AAU teams or the traveling teams have taken a number of the kids away from the Little League, and because apparently they play quite a few games the traveling teams do. That's the one comment that I hear over and over again, is that has taken some of the kids away. So they've had some struggles getting kids to make teams, and then getting
Coaching,
volunteers,
yeah.
coaches, people to run the concession stand, do the fields, kind of the same types of problems other people have as far as volunteers. But That's what I've heard, and so I don't know that it's necessarily growing. I
Okay.
just think there's more diversity in.
I
in
have
that.
been there. I have a nephew that plays in that, and when I've been there, and I've been there this past year, a couple games, I mean, it's packed. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And so it is, I mean, it is a much needed thing. I do think it, I know in the past they have, expressed to us the importance of it, but I don't disagree. There's definitely different AAU options and things like that, but if they're willing to maintain it and they're doing a good job, I don't have a problem with that, but is that,
Yeah, we took on a little more of the mowing for them a few years back because they were having some financial issues and just trying to find people. So we said, well, we'll go ahead and take outside of the fences and do that if that will help you out. So I think that did help them financially some,
Okay.
but I don't get an annual financial statement from them, so I don't know all of their finances.
Yeah, I guess the only thing from a park operation standpoint, Steve, you've been dealing with this for years. You don't see any detriment to that in terms of how we just function as a county park.
No, what we do for them, along with some of that maintenance, is we do provide the electric and the water for them, which isn't significant throughout the year. Electric is maybe $2,000 a year, something like that. And then water is maybe half of that.
Okay.
So, it's not a big expense, but I think the reward part of it for the kids, and we're doing it for the kids,
Yeah,
we all are
yeah.
doing it for them.
Yeah.
So, as long as we can help them do that, I'm all for that. And it's not a major expense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So,
Steve.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good catch up on that. Thank you.
um, page 9, Roberts Creek Park, the East Campground Lower Loop. East side of the campgrounds basically split it into an upper and a lower loop. The lower loop has 26 sites. The upper loop has 27 sites. The upper loop has a restroom shower facility. The lower loop doesn't have any restrooms of any kind. So what we're proposing is to build a 10 by 20 wood frame structure. Similar to this picture, this is one that our staff is building by the observation tower now. We can build those considerably cheaper than buying a prefabbed concrete one. Concrete one the same size as this, almost identical to this, set on your slab of concrete is about 125,000. We can build these for about less than 40,000. And our staff knows how to do it, so we can get in there and pretty much knock them out relatively quickly. The next page just kind of shows you what the outside will look like. That's the restroom, and as you've seen them at the pavilion, but we try to keep that same look throughout the park. And then the inside, we basically wainscot that with wood on the top and tile on the bottom. So these look a lot better than your standard poured concrete ones that they bring in for 125,000, and we can build them. So
do
we
they
don't have-
hold up? Do you feel like the one at this one, the
Yep,
court over you
the
said,
pavilion?
or pavilion? Yeah, sorry. Is it holding up?
Yeah, we
Oh,
built it
that's-
in 2015.
Okay.
So it's almost 9 years old, and we haven't had any problem. They don't vandalize it. They don't, do things inside to it that we have to fix. So they've worked great. But you need to use quality materials up front when you do it. So yeah, it's worked well. We've got a lot of nice compliments on that, the inside looks a lot better than a prefabbed concrete one. So that's the theme that we try to stay with throughout the park.
Yeah,
So-
no, it looks nice. I've been in this one, so yes, it does. I
Um,
believe, didn't your wife help with this one? or
She did.
something?
I don't think she's gonna do it again, but she was nice enough to, yes, to help me. So,
She was helping with design.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, like everybody else, equipment, we try to trade out at least one truck every year. We're actually behind on that because we pulled those funds to work on some other major projects in the last couple of years. So we're trying to get caught up on those so we don't have a major layout of 2 or 3 trucks in one fiscal year. So that can be problematic as well. So, the blue sheet is minor projects. We'd like to get a permanent access to the Volkswagen Trail from the 3-bedroom cabins. And on that map, the red line is what I was proposing. It's the shortest section to get through. although there is some significant tree removal and some site prep for that, and we would need a culvert for the ditch. But right now, people that have bikes, they use the 3-bedroom cabins, go in front of the cabin,
Cabins,
down
yeah.
through the ditch to the trail. Well, going down's not quite so bad. It's coming up is the issue, going back up that hill. And if it rains when you're gone and you have to come through the ditch full of water, that's another problem.
Okay.
So, I'm estimating for about 5,500, a person can make a permanent trail to those cabins. That'd be about 175 feet, about 6 feet wide. But again, that's one comment we hear is that we'd like to use the trail. Getting to it is fine. Getting back out is the issue. So,
Something you guys are gonna plan to do then?
we would do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah, we would do that.
I think that would be a great addition. Yep.
Roberts Creek East Boat Ramp, we'd like to install a dock and a kayak canoe launch area for a couple different reasons. One, we've been working with, SUP of Pella, so stand-up paddleboarding out of Pella. And, he is actually going to build on his nickel a storage facility on the east side of Roberts Creek at that boat ramp, where he is going to store boards and kayaks. And then he is going to conduct business out of there to rent canoes, kayaks, paddle boards. He started doing that 3 years ago, something like that. And it's taken off so much that he spends more time hauling canoes and things back and forth from Pella. And so we worked in partnership with him and the Corps to actually let him build a facility there on skids, because the water, of course, fluctuates. We got to pull that thing back. But it's been a good partnership because we've seen a real influx of stand-up paddleboarders and kayakers on Roberts Creek. And a lot of the people we talk to come out of the metro, and they come down here because, one, it's 300-acre lake. It's protected, doesn't have a lot of wave action, and they don't have a lot of boats going by them, so because it's a no wake. And when they come out here, they're dealing with the same kind of people up in, they're all paddleboarders or kayakers. They're not paddleboarders and then motorboats.
Right.
So we see a real influx now of
Or
people
jet
coming from
skis,
the
yeah.
metro. And that's one of the other reasons he wants to have a building out there, is because he's getting a lot of rentals. One time I thought he told me it was like 1,800 rentals for a season or something. It seems like a lot, but it was a lot of rentals. And that's why he wants to invest in, the building, which helps promote the park as well. So,
Does he pay anything for, it's.
no,
doesn't give
there's a
any-
caveat in there that if he grosses over X amount, then he has to pay back to the county. And that was kind of negotiated through the Corps. There's certain rules and regs the Fed will let you do, and certain ones they won't let you do. So
Okay.
at this point in time, no, it was more like a service to us to
Yeah.
promote the park as well. So, it would be nice to have a ADA approved launch. The problem with that is we have to have a launch on wheels, because Roberts Creek, as you know, will fluctuate 33 feet.
Mhm.
If the big lake is at 742, at 750, it backs into Roberts Creek, and it'll go up to 783 and some change. So anything permanent, you have to drag back. So it almost has to be on a set of wheels to do that. And so on the next page, I just put that's a patio type where it's on, those wheels are 30-inch wheels. They don't look that big, but they are. They're kind of like flotation, where you can pull them back and forth especially on a 32-foot dock. And we do that periodically when the lake comes up, because the lake can come up 20, 24 inches overnight. So then you got to pull this back. If it's permanent, that makes
do
it
that,
really
yeah.
hard to do. The other thing about an ADA, the only one I could find in the state was at Hayden Park in Ames, and it ran about 90,000 to do that. But their lake doesn't fluctuate very much, and they can do things like that. We just don't have that kind of ability because of the lake fluctuations.
Mm. Yeah.
But this would be a nice addition for most of the people, especially kids trying to get in. First time you ever got in a kayak, a lot of these kids just
Yeah.
flip over. So it'd be nice if they could, not do that.
Right.
So,
That would be me if that was,
yeah, if you've never gotten a kayak before, there's a little bit of an art to it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Then the orange is, potential future projects. I usually like to just throw one in there occasionally. The pavilion at Cordova Park. The Board Conservation Department has talked about trying to improve that a little bit. We have about 50 reservations every year. Of that 50, probably 42 of those are weddings. The rest are corporate retreats and reunions. So it works well, but there's no reason that you can't improve the way, especially for weddings. And that's why, like the red area there would maybe be a fireplace. I'm just throwing these out, and maybe some additional seating. Almost all of those weddings are catered.
Yeah.
Either out of Pella or Knoxville. There's really not a good location for these people to set up. They make do, but it's not ideal. So the blue area might be a catering area, and then see where the brides come through is maybe try to enhance that a little bit instead of just your typical sidewalk coming in. So those are just things that we've talked about. We don't have anything specific, but something to think about down the road. Another thing we're gonna have to deal with down the road is Marion County Park roads. Again, I seem like I'm Tyler again here, but that's a picture, the first one is a picture of the campground roads. Those were seal coated in 2008. So again, quite a few years ago. And then, the concrete section down below was 1995. So we tend to wear everything out before we replace it. The next page, Cordova still has some 1970 era DNR shelter houses. These are gonna have to be reshingled and redone this year because they're getting in bad shape. But you notice the real cool design where they got the hole in the middle of the roof there. So when it rains and blows, it comes right down in on you. That works real well. So in time, those will need to be, we would replace those with steel. That reduces the maintenance on them as well. We try to get away from as much maintenance as we can for our money savings. So again, those are things that down the road we'll look at. And then of course, the last page, I just put equipment in there. We try to do a rotation of our mowers and things like that, but you do get behind, and pretty soon you're buying 3 or 4 pieces of equipment that can be budget busters, as a lot of departments know. So anyway, those are just things that down the road we're gonna have to address. But there needs to be a schedule set up on how to do that. So, that's about all I've got,
Okay.
unless you've got additional questions, concerns. Questions that we're doing this year, or
Yeah.
I don't have any real cool stuff, I guess, like we're doing this year when redoing the cabins and building bathrooms and things like that, but
Utilization, Steve, still
I,
high.
yeah, it'd be nice to get those new 3 cabins
was gonna
started
ask you on
because we've
those,
had a lot
yeah.
of questions about how do you make a reservation? We're like, we don't even have the start yet. So the word is kind of out what they're gonna be like. And people are trying to get in on the ground floor of, can you make a list? Like, can't do that. So the demand is there, especially for high quality cabins.
Okay.
That's the key, is the high quality part of it.
Any ETA on the ones that were still kind of
Chris and I are
in?
gonna get together.
Okay.
We're hoping to go out like the second week of February for bids, and then try to have bids back by no later than the latter part of February. And then with construction to start whenever the weather breaks, which normally is the first part of April,
Okay,
somewhere in there.
Okay.
So, yep, we want to get on that because we want to get those things done. Because I didn't account for any revenue in the budget for those.
that's what I was gonna ask you. Yeah, you probably have a 0 in there for
Yeah, I
that.
just have a 0
Yeah.
for that.
Okay,
So,
good. Steve, Keisha, any additional questions for conservation?
No, I don't. Thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you
Thank
guys.
Steve, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Well
Thank you.
done. All right. Next, we have an exciting topic called levy rate. It's one that Jake likes. Jake likes this topic a lot.
Just the end.
Do we have a chart showing those rates? But Lindsay is already saying, All right. There, there we go. No, you're. Yes, thank you. Jake,
Yep, so these are, the levy rates that are currently in the, revenue side for budget. So those are called tax-related revenues, and then all the associated credits that come with that.
Mhm.
You can see what it does historically, what it sets for levels. If you want to see the dollar amounts, I don't know if Renee has it. You have that, the one pager from the actual budget that's called the certification. I'll tell you if I see it. No. Okay, it was from the kickoff. And that would be the dollar amount. It
Oh,
would
you mean
be
the
the
original,
levies, but it
yeah.
has
Right.
the actual dollar amounts of
Yeah.
what you're requesting.
right. But the real issue for us is just, are we going to do anything with
Correct.
them up or down?
Quick review of what you have before you, if that's okay.
Absolutely, Jake.
So the general fund is the main driver of the county. It accesses all countywide valuation without not including the TIF increment. And so with new House File 718 and the taxable valuation growth of 5% that was reduced down to 3 to accomplish that goal, it's a reduction of the levy. So your maximum general fund levy can be $3.4313. So that's your new maximum. Historically, we've seen that the county has been at that maximum level. You do have to be at your maximum level to have a general supplemental. The general supplemental of the county is the main driver for insurances of the liability property, the employee benefits, and EMA contribution, and a few other things. But those are the main drivers of that. You can see that last year you dropped that 20 cents. This current budget has that as well. This valuation also acts as all countywide taxable value, not including TIP. Okay. Mental health, there is no levy anymore. The debt service is only used to pay off principal and interest on bonds that the county has issued. The county currently has 3 different bond projects going on. And on one of those, there is some TIF increment coming back from the city that it's in for the Prairie Ridge project. That will be divided to help pay off the bond principal and also into the LMI fund. So this resulting 17 cents is to make sure we cover all principal and interest for those 3 issues. It is decreased, as you can see, somewhat with the new Atkins project coming on, but that's because of the VA demolition project that was acquired or was granted to the county for a couple of years.
Right.
So that's a direct reduction.
So Jake, that the grant we're going to spread over the next 2 years.
Yep.
Correct? So this
Mhm.
budget cycle and the next will see an impact of that grant, the
Correct.
grant dollars.
Correct.
And then when we think about what we've done in the past, the general supplemental's always been where we've tried to grant some debt or some levy relief. And we've used that fund. And then as far as the general fund goes,
You're pretty
that's
locked into that.
yeah, that 7 cents is there, and that's the new 350.
Right.
So just for context, there's not a lot of flexibility this year,
Not a lot of
really,
flexibility.
to do much. And when we think about the connection to our distribution of lost money, as we talked about, and what we want to do with that, those dollars, I'm really leaning toward having that allocation to the general fund, as we discussed. I think that would be a good utilization of that this year. Because in next year, the year after, the general supplemental fund, if you need additional dollars to it, a 5 cent increase there is much less impactful than doing it pretty much any other fund.
It is a countywide valuation.
Yeah.
Yes. The debt service fund there does access all valuation that's in increment as well. And with the reduction from that demolition grant that was granted to the county, which is great, for 2 years, maybe by then the first subdivision in the VA complex might be coming online
Right.
for their increments. And there might be a small amount coming back to help us.
Right.
Right. And there's LMI off of that too as well, Jake.
I don't recall.
All right. I think there,
It is a residential, I believe it's residential, but the city hasn't even established that tax increment finance district
Right,
yet.
right.
So I don't know, but I would imagine because it's residential, there may be an LMI component.
yeah, I
I'm
thought
not sure
there,
if that was part of the development agreement.
I thought there was, but we'll have to,
Pleasantville, there isn't because it's commercial,
yeah,
so
yes,
I'm not sure.
yeah, we'll have to check, just
Yeah.
to validate that.
They have to go through that process.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Board questions, comment?
yeah,
I have no problem keeping it like.
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
it
the
was
rural
done.
one is, for the folks that are in the unincorporated area, that is the maximum. It did not meet, the House File 718 3% threshold. The growth was only 2.13 or something
Yeah.
like that percent. So that is a maximum amount, that can be, used towards the areas that Fund 11 pays for, which is mostly secondary road transfer, some uniform law, portion of the Department 5. Zoning is now out of that. And I think those are the main drivers.
Okay, good. And remember, in the budget worksheet now, we have some, within the spreadsheet, we can show where those funds are being drawn from. As you review those budget worksheets, you can see the funds being pulled from the dollars for particular departments coming from specific funds and where they go. So it's an added nuance to the budget worksheet.
So this would be your portion of the property tax increment of your total budget, not increment, that's the wrong word, portion of your total budget
Right,
for revenues.
correct.
Then there would be all the other fees and all of those other things are separate.
Would be
This
extra,
this levy creates the
the tax
the
base.
tax portion of your fund,
Yes.
of the county's fund.
Okay. Steve, any questions?
Nope, I have no problem with.
So Jake, do you
leaving
need
it
a
fine.
motion if we're in agreement
Um,
to hold levies as presented?
That would be great.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Jake?
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Next. Is this a tandem thing, auditor and HR, or?
I think we got put in here as a time filler. I'll
All
I'll go-
right,
I'll go first. That's fine. That, oh, I don't. Yeah, I mean, okay, so I guess this would be, first of all, thank you for setting the levies. That helps in, a large portion of back-end programming onto the budget program, so we appreciate that. I believe that this is my portion for actually the auditor's office department. When I was talking with Jared last night, we weren't sure if it was better to be at the end or should have been at the beginning. We're not sure. So, a few highlights from my department and, I'm gonna take a little liberties at the beginning just to. Sorry. Just appreciate the people that are back in that building at the courthouse in my office. I greatly appreciate them. Seems to be the time to do that. I just want to say thank you to them.
We appreciate your office
Well,
too. Thank you, Jake.
We try to work hard.
You do.
So anyway, thank you to them. Highlights of this budget. We've got a 5% bucket, for, is what we put in for most places there. My department is a little bit, unique because I come out of Fund 1 and Fund 2. So you're gonna see some of
Mhm.
that there as well,
Right.
okay?
Can you go down to the back? Go down to the totals.
Okay. So, I do have 5% plugged in. I'm in two different departments. Again, we don't know what the elected official salaries are gonna do and how that will flow, 5% for the rest. I do have, one staff member, and I'm just gonna tag on to what everybody else has said, what Michaela said yesterday. What we've talked about in general, I'm not gonna, point that out specifically, but I do have one of my staff members that has been there a year, is cross-training, is learning, is in the succession line, is at a, lower end salary, and I would like to get that to that at least $40,000 amount.
So Jake,
And that was a one-off special request.
yeah, so when Michaela brought that up, I was thinking about this last night, and Naomi isn't here. But we have several positions like that within the courthouse.
I do.
So in your opinion, does the same argument apply when you look at the treasurer and you say, hey, we've got certain people below 40 and they need to be at least to 40? Does the same argument apply in terms of training and
Yeah, I mean,
all those things we talked about with Michaela?
my side, we have somebody that's been in a position with extensive knowledge for 20 years. We're training that person into that component. So yes, I think, I don't know, argument, approach, it's just life in general. It's anything we can do to maintain and keep. We see, and I don't like to compare to other departments. I don't like to compare to other things, but we see there are other areas that there's a higher amount of pay. And I don't like to compare that, but I do feel like, we talked yesterday just about some very basic living, areas. It takes more money to live now. And that is an area I think that we can, support and grow a little bit more, in this countywide big picture to help support those people a little bit more because they are there every day. So that is a one-off for that. It is not a common ask. But so yes, I think it's a very common theme, that we have those same areas or that same range of pay for these individuals that are on the ground every day.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, Jake, and I appreciate that. And for any department that's struggling with that issue, and whether that's Michaela or you, one of the things that we looked at in several of our charts, and you guys have all seen it during the course of our discussion, we are increasingly limited in our access to more valuation, assuming valuations go up.
Yeah, the state has now done that.
Yes.
Yep.
So when we think about the need to potentially elevate some of our lower paid staff to get them to whatever that, inflation, cost of living, all those things, there's got to be a little bit of a give and take there with the higher paid staff. I mean, I could put that graph I had up the last couple of days. So just keep that in mind, that as that request comes in, that still takes dollars, and it's still as much of a moving target as anything else. Because next year, if inflation goes to, 4%, 5%, 6%, or it still will cause that issue. So we're kind of chasing our tail on that one too. And that doesn't mean I'm not interested in having that discussion, but it does mean that on both ends, right? We've got highly compensated people, and we've got people that everybody is saying we need to bring them up for competitive issues, retention issues, all those things. That still becomes a floating scale, right?
It does.
And those dollars are finite. So I just want to make sure
Yep.
we frame this,
Yep.
that we too, as a board, I think this is consistent across what everybody has said. We want to have pay scales that are respectable. We want people to be able to afford to live on these salaries to the extent we can for the value of the job. But that bucket is limited.
Yep.
So just as
Yep.
we talk
Yep.
about it, Jake. So I appreciate the
Yep,
dialogue.
I just don't want to,
Steve, I don't know
we
if you,
focus on this top end a lot. I
Yeah.
don't want to lose sight of
yes,
that.
I
and
agree.
I appreciate
Or Keisha, yeah,
No,
go ahead.
consideration of
Right.
that.
And I
moving
think
forward with that.
you bring up a good point, Jake, and I think that's something that we need to, I think the board recognizes this too. But we all know that when we've done the 5% and the buckets, 5% at a $40,000, that's $2,000. When you have 100,000, that's $5,000. So, I mean, and when you're considering wages. So, it is difficult. I mean, what do we consider? Because he talks about the 85, that range is getting higher, 85,000 and above. But then,
And you never
Those-
catch up.
And if you do five, if you keep, Keisha, your point is right. If you keep doing fives across the board, the 85s on the dollar basis are going to continue to climb faster on a
Good.
gross dollar basis. That's just the nature of the math, right?
correct.
So we have to balance that. If there is truly a need for these folks. I mean, yesterday the sheriff talked about his boots on the ground folks. I think it's important. I'm hearing a theme from everybody about that salary range. I think it comports with what we showed in our graph. That we want folks to be able to make the kind of wages that are sustainable. I hate using those words because that's pretty subjective, but I appreciate the dialogue. on
I'd
that.
like to add something, I believe that all the Marion County departments are in their own unique way, equally important to the citizens of Marion County. And I understand the validity of the county-wide and city comparisons with wages. But my main concern at this time is to bring some type of equity to within the departments. I think that's a morale thing, within our own organization. And how we accomplish that is kind of difficult when we have to meet some unfunded mandates, but I think we all feel the same way on that. And how we get there might be a little bit of a struggle, but we're trying to head that way.
And I also know there are jobs that it seems like if that person were to leave and to replace is somewhat costs more too. We've seen that in other things. So it's all, like you say, Mark, it is this balance and it is very difficult. And, I'm sure all of us have probably lost a little bit of sleep thinking about it. So yes.
Very true.
All
All
right.
right, Jake,
So
sorry
back-
about that, but
That's okay.
that's a
No,
good discussion to
um,
have. Very good. Thank
Want
you.
you to know that that's there. All right, so the rest of my department is split between these two. What our main functions are, the daily operations, and then the elections are the wild card. So there's a little bit of float back and forth. It seems weird. 2024 is a big year for us. We have a primary in June. That's actually in this current fiscal year. So that part is budgeted in this. So next year, we actually we program for just the general election. That's the only scheduled election we have at this point. We hope that holds. We do account for some special election stuff. Elections are getting more expensive. There's just no doubt about that.
Do we get anything from the state on elections?
Not on like the general election, no. So like the city school last fall, we did get to invoice the cities and schools for like 30,000. I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but we get to
There's your
get back a
calculation,
a certain portion of the expenses. None of our time. That would add just a lot more. But like the printing, programming, polling place rent, if we have it, and what the precinct election officials cost on those days. We get to build that back and a small admin fee. We don't do a direct charge back for all like the postage on the absentees, the printing of the absentee ballots, envelopes, all of our time. That doesn't get billed back, but we do get a portion of city schools, and then any special election, they pay a portion of as well, but not the general election. So we don't bill that back. So unfortunately, we only bill taxing entities, so it is still taxpayer.
Right, right.
Yep. So, just a couple of things, with our department. So, we are in one of the changes here. I don't know where it is on there, but we are just finishing our third year of our buy-in program for our 10X or our electronic poll book. That's the little, iPads that when you go and check in at your polling site. So that payment program is done. So we got to drop that off. No, that's actually just switching to it's on the bottom. It's $25,000 a year that we get to take off. Okay, so our 10X poll book is paid for. It was a great acquisition for us. It is much easier to work with. And actually using our storeroom upstairs now, the Wi-Fi signal is better. We can program better. And it works really good with the poll site. So we appreciate that we have the electronic poll book or our 10X paid for now. City school election was the first time we used our new voting equipment, so I want to thank you guys for that again. That is actually coming out of Department 99. So this fiscal year is year 2 of that pay program at $50,000 a year for our new equipment. So we're gonna have that stuff ready to go this year. That is not in my department, but I just wanted to bring it up that it is in year 2 of that for Department 99. The only other new thing we're gonna do this year is we purchased a little software program, so we'll have an annual maintenance fee of under $5,000 a year to manage our precinct election database. We've just been trying to do Excel worksheets, and the iVoters program isn't very handy to use. Plus, they're gonna switch that as well. So it's a database program to manage all of our poll worker databases, and what the goal of that is to be able to send them direct emails with reminders, training materials, videos, things like that. So that's called Modus. We're still in process of setting that up. So besides the salary thing, we've already had that discussion. The rest is status quo. The bottom line actually looks like it went down just a little bit, but that is a fluctuation of a general election, one major election versus 2 major elections to budget for. We are, just as a sidebar, in the middle of the digitalizing process of all the old board of supervisor minute books and all of our transfer books from the auditor's office. I think they're going to hopefully wrap that up next week. We also found in the basement from the 1850s, the county judge's minute book, and we're also got them to include that in the project. So hopefully within the next year here on our county website, you will be able to search by word and look up all the and see the historical board of supervisor books. Secondary road department can hopefully find a road vacation from 1912 or whatever. Easier than-
Digitizing is not as fun as
Steve
flipping
doesn't have to
pages.
come up to the basement anymore and spend 3 hours down there. But
Going through dusty books.
yeah,
is that-
and I know Naomi in the recorder's office has the same thing with these old books, but if people haven't seen these old books, they're amazing. Unfortunately, the read write isn't going to work for the cursive, because the cursive is absolutely beautiful how those folks wrote in those books. You just can't necessarily read it.
Yeah, you
But anyway, they're gonna be there, and I appreciate you guys using that. That was that special, that county assistance fund that doesn't get much use is paying for that. But that's, we're about complete, and I would encourage you to stop up to the 4th floor to see those guys doing that. We have machines, how they do it is pretty cool. They
I
take the
used to be a
picture of every
regular
page.
customer, Jake.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with Steve. Steve and his folders. So I don't know if you guys have questions about our specific department, how we interact with others or what we do. I appreciate also the new assessor coming in. We're very excited. Try to build a working relationship with him. I know his staff's ready to go. So we work very, very closely with second floor and departments in general. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, Jake.
Jake,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Jake, just writing some notes
No
down here.
worries.
All right. It's a handoff. Lisa.
Mine will be short, sweet, and to the point. I'm a little hurt that my large project didn't get on the large project list. My large project for next year is 2 laptops and a printer. So that'll be about $3,500. Other than that, sorry, I had to bring that up.
Yeah. I heard.
What I've heard all week, I had the privilege of listening to everybody and everybody present. Mark's comment has been consistent. What is the value you bring? And I can't quantify the value that myself and Renee bring to Marion County, it varies every day. And it's not quantifiable, I do not believe. We take pride in confidentiality. We take pride in listening to everybody. We take pride in working with all the departments. What can we do to help them? I feel the other thing that has been wonderful for our department is our move to public health. It's been a great area for us to meet with people confidentially, and more willing to come and just come visit with us. Renee has been a wonderful asset, a wonderful addition to the team. Her and I tag team a lot of issues. She said to me this week, she said, I don't know how you did this by yourself. I don't know how I did it either. It's just that you just keep plugging away. And every day there just seems to be more and more issues or things come up that need attention. And so she is very much an open book like myself. I know you've talked about it, Mark, about with her health insurance. We are willing to sit down with anybody at any time and look at your health insurance, your dental, your benefits. If you're struggling in life, we'll come on down. We will talk to you. We'll find you some help if, you know. So the value I feel that we bring is that we're a team. We make a team effort. We're here to support not only the employees, but the departments, department heads, and everybody involved. You will see that I put a 6% for myself and a 10 for Renee. It's right there at the top.
Yeah, I know. I just.
Okay.
I saw that.
I hear you at 5. I'm totally fine at 5. And what I plan to do is I'll take the bucket of 5. And I believe that Renee deserves what she's getting. So I will make that right with her. I think that her value that she has brought to the team, she takes on all new hires. A lot of department heads, and if you hire people, you talk to Renee now because she's got it. I don't always have time, and she gets them through, and she does the new hire orientation. She stepped up to the plate. That is huge. So, but that's my plan, unless you tell me anything different.
Questions?
Got a question for you. I
Sure.
know that Tyler had brought it up at the first of the year. Is the DOT physical something that your office would be willing to consider taking on because of is it the DOT physical? What is it called? DOT, what's it called?
Are you talking about the database?
Drug and alcohol. I knew it was. It wasn't physicals.
That is, I don't believe that we,
Do you need a mic? Sorry, Tyler.
What do we, is this the one where we do for
Are you talking
staff
about
or
like
for
the
outside
TAMI?
employees?
For drivers, those drivers, yeah, to keep track of that and
For our staff or for anybody in the county?
staff.
Just for staff only? Because that's,
It'd be administration of the CDL program related to the Federal Motor Carriers Association requirements for randoms and pre-employment for any department such as Steve's, Chris's,
Yeah.
or
okay, so it'd be for county employees. Okay.
Yeah. The employee in charge or something like that is the official title. We call it the CDL, Drug and Alcohol Administrator.
Sorry.
Here.
Okay. Wasn't physicals yet. Okay. Thank you for that clarity. I knew it had to
And
be-
no, I have not brought that up to them ever.
Okay.
That was a sidebar after our organizational meeting. And I apologize, Lisa, you were not included on that. And I had not brought that up to you ever.
That's totally fine. And we're open to it. My only concern is that we have the knowledge that we need or the tools that we need.
It would have to be a
to do
training
that.
process. I do know,
Right.
from my understanding is. You have to-
Yeah, and, no fault of theirs, but there's been a lot of confusion with Pella and Unity Point. And then as part of the new hire process, you know, if it comes from a different department, are we made aware of that? You know, we've let Steve and Chris know if they hire and they are requiring a CDL, but, you know, that was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Told
Sure.
that, you know, so how well, and then that's on us too. Make sure we're communicating, but just making it part of the new hire process, whether they have a CDL or not, to get the correct drug screening, you know, maybe, I was just suggesting, maybe it fits better in HR.
Well,
it-
I
it
think,
may.
I think you could certainly explore it this year, Tyler, and see if there is a fit and have that discussion, Lisa,
And-
and
and-
see.
And absolutely, and I will say that Renee has worked well with Tyler and Tammy on getting the billing and the results. It is a little confusing because we do have non-DOT drug tests and DOT drug tests, and who gets the results, who gets the bill. Renee has been instrumental in working with Pella Regional and the third party that actually reads those. So we're certainly open to that. We would just need some additional training.
Yeah,
So-
sure.
Totally open to that.
Go with it.
What's that?
Wage line item for Renee, if you were to take on
the
those,
future, yeah,
those
yeah.
duties.
We've already
Oh.
assigned it for this year.
Yeah, we're not opposed to anything. I hope that you feel that we are easy to work with. We will take a look at anything and give you an honest opinion
We'll
back.
just
We're
have that.
trying to
con-
distill
Yeah,
it
and
to
I
its
did ask,
terms.
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
did ask Tammy about what kind of time commitment, so
Right.
she's kind of gonna be coming up with what that entails, you know.
Have that conversation and see if there's a fit,
Yeah,
and
and
we'll
it's
just do it that way.
totally fine if it is.
Yeah.
And if it's not, we're totally fine with the way it's going to. We work well with each other.
One of the things when you know, I tease you about this all the time when you talk about value is our health insurance plan, our work comp plan. I mean, those are highly complex issues that you and Renee deal with. And to have I think, and I haven't heard from employees up or down, left or right on this, but to have the uptake we've seen in our high deductible plan, since you two have taken that on, I think is amazing. I think that's a great benefit for our staff. And our work comp administration, Lisa, there's no question that part of the reason our mod rate has declined the way it's declined is what you two do related to our management of work comp. Those are huge financial issues for us as a county. So one of the ways to quantify that value, it's not all of it,
No.
but that's a big component of it for the two of you. And I appreciate everything you do in that regard because those are huge financial concerns. Those are huge liability concerns for us as a county. So I think you two have done an excellent job in that regard. Tyler, you look like you had something you wanted to say. Well, you were holding the mic like this, so I assume that meant you were just waiting for me to be done. Okay. All right. Anybody else any questions for Lisa?
I appreciate your ask. I'm not quite there at the 6 or the 10, but I mean,
That's fine.
yeah. so,
I'm
okay.
totally fine with that. It was a place to start and I'm one of the last ones and I've heard your message, 5%. And I'm fine with that. Totally fine with that. And I
Good.
appreciate you being upfront with me and we can have that conversation. So
Good.
Thank you.
that's all I have, unless you have more questions.
Steve?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
All right. Lisa, thank you. Drum roll.
County Attorney.
Jared's first budget presentation.
Had a lot of firsts this year. Why not add another one?
All right.
Miscalculated this, saving an attorney to talk last. God, good idea. Well, I first want to make just a couple comments before I get into the heart of this. I appreciate the board's confidence in me in appointing me last year, that giving me that trust and the confidence, and I appreciate that. And I also want to thank a lot of the other county employees. All of law enforcement in this county has been incredibly supportive of me taking over. all the department heads and their employees helped me and helped our office to succeed through this year. And I was just overwhelmed by that. And he's going to hate that I do this, but I have to thank Jake Grandia more than anybody for that success. What he provides to this county is immeasurable, and people should know that. His institutional knowledge and willingness to share that is remarkable. That poor guy trained a county attorney this year.
We are very blessed.
The
Yes,
number
yes,
of times I went up to his office and said, Jake, what is this? How does this work? And he drops everything and he helped me. Before hours, after hours, didn't matter.
Believe me, we've all done it, Jared.
Well, if
But
the
his
coun-
willingness, it means, it says a lot. Yep, yep.
and he's a fantastic guy, you know. But if you want to see county tax dollars at work and stretching dollars, drive by the county employee parking lot on a Saturday or Sunday. You'll see Jake there. So I'm sorry, Jake. I know you don't like that, but I had to say it. Maybe he has to work on Saturdays and Sundays. 'Cause it's the only time I'm not bothered. Now that I think about it.
I'll not bother you. What do you say?
Poor guy. Anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to let me say those things. It's been a remarkable year. I took over in February, and Mr. Bull left, and he was incredibly helpful during the transition time, but that transition time was short. We had just a few weeks for me to transition into a new job that I'd not done before. And that is a disruption to operations no matter what. We had to make some shifts and dockets and things like that. And we had to shift workload to other people. I took on more, everybody took on more. And that was a lot. And, you know, that in and of itself would be a tough thing to overcome. But at the same time, one of our assistants, Joy Messer, 14 years experience, was getting ready to have a baby. And so we knew that she was going to be gone for a period of time. And we got a new hire, Bryce, and we were lucky to get him. But this is no joke. Bryce came in on a Monday and Joy left on a Friday, had her baby on a Monday. So you want to
Wow.
talk about Joy gutting it out to the very end to help this transition. So in a matter of just a few weeks, we lost Mr. Bull's 22 years experience and all the experience he had, 12 years of running this office, and Joy's 14 years of experience. And now we're left with what we, you know, Bryce is a very, very bright kid, but he had 6 months experience. And so, you know, that's something that we had to deal with. This is not the ideal type of environment that you want to run a law office with, okay? I talked with Ross. I appointed him to be my deputy, and we discussed how we'd get this done. And we discussed, you know, we had another position in the budget. We talked about coming to the board. I think we would have been reasonable to come to the board and say, we need some more help. But we didn't. We decided that it was all hands on deck and that we were going to ask more of everyone to get through this period while Joy was gone, while Bryce was training. And we did it. And we did it without a disruption. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that my office did during that time. We shifted dockets. We, you know, added new duties to people, relied more on staff to control things. You know, as a prosecutor, we have deadlines. And if we don't hit them, cases get dismissed. And so there's nothing that keeps me up at night more than thinking about blowing a speedy trial deadline or a speedy indictment deadline. And when you start moving responsibilities from attorney to attorney, a lot of staff has to pay attention to that stuff. And we were able to do that without any blips in the radar. Operations continued as normal, and Joy came back in the fall, and we reorganized the duties in the office again. And I think right now we're clicking pretty well. And so I'm incredibly proud of what's happened over last year. So now, with all that being said, when I took this job over I now had to handle this budget. I had no experience handling this budget before. And my initial reaction was, we are going to put a freeze on everything. First of all, we don't have any time to do any more training or anything like that as we've done in the past. That was all out this last year. And any other expenditures, we limited to just the bare minimums. I felt like coming in, I needed to get a baseline of what it took to run this office. And that's what I've tried to do. And so I think if you look at some of the numbers, you'll see some of the differences in spending. And I'm proud of that as well. So, and my ask this year, if you notice, I've not asked for any additional dollars for anything other than salaries. I want to keep everything the way that the same as it was last year.
Lindsay?
Am I talking too loud? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, if you were talking too loud, Jared, I'd tell you.
I appreciate it, Jared, because I'm a little hard of hearing.
So that's what I've asked for. I've not asked for any more money for our training budget or our office supplies budget or anything like that. Keep everything the same. I think we're able to operate on what we did last year. Now, the asks have been with the staff and the attorneys. Can I see that PowerPoint for a second?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Jared, because on this sheet, I have the sheet that Jake, it says 6%, but I think up there it says 5. Did you change that or did somebody, okay, you change? Okay.
So what I want to add in is with what I've just described against that backdrop, if you go to the second and third slide, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, this kind of lays out a list of all the cases that we've handled. If you could go to the next one, though, the numbers are what I want to point out. If you look there, we had an increase in the number of cases that we handled amidst all of this change, too. So it's not like, I can't call Jason and say, hey, can you give me a timeout for about 30 or 60 days and not arrest anybody or anything like that? It keeps coming. And we had more cases that we handled this last year than we did the year before by a pretty decent amount. And so I think that's important to consider as well. As I described, I made Ross deputy last year, and I didn't ask for him to be at 85% of my salary. I think that, from what I've heard from the board is that, we want to kind of try to work towards that, not all in one shot. I didn't try to do that. I think I put him at about 75% of my salary. I've asked that he be moved to about 80.9% of my salary from last year. That's my ask this year. So as we talked about in the past, deputies can make up to 85%, and that's pretty common. But I'm not asking for that here. Ross handles all of our sex abuse cases, and trying to find a prosecutor with his experience,
Right.
Difficult proposition.
Jared, for the cases that take and consume most of your time, when I look at I'm just looking at the chart here. Can you highlight which ones, pretty significant increase on your theft and fraud line, damage and trespass up significantly. Which ones take a lot of your office's time?
Sex abuse.
Is that the big one? Okay.
If you look, we've had, for whatever reason, a huge increase in, a big increase in those cases that might be from the screen before. But you add any number of additional sex abuse cases, and you're talking about an incredible increase in workload.
Okay.
Drugs as well. I don't, it's hard. This doesn't break it down into felony, non-felony.
Right.
But when we've had some pretty big drug busts too. And so those are pretty time consuming as well.
Okay. So that increase then from 11 to 27 is going to chew up an inordinate amount of your office's time.
Absolutely.
Jason?
Yeah, no question, whether it be for the officer or deputy investigating or their office, there's a lot of times the thoroughness of the reports and the reviews that they have to do, everything with it. Obviously, Jared and I are on the exact same page on holding those people to the utmost. I mean, just holding them accountable for those actions and stuff. So there's a lot of extra time and effort that goes in that, and they do a fabulous job. I mean, that's it. Jared and I are on the same page. It's like if somebody's going to abuse our kids in Marion County, we're going to, I mean, push it to the full extent of the law and how we can prosecute them.
Okay.
Some of these drug and alcohol cases, we can look at different ways to rehabilitate people, get them treatment and things like that. Sex abuse is a whole different
Right.
category.
Okay. Very good.
So-
Thank you. Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, you can see that I've asked for a significant raise for Joy. And this is a direct result of her taking over basically the entire felony drug docket and the felony property crimes docket, which used to be mine before I switched to county attorney. And so this isn't just wow, we really like Joy. This is her accepting a new job within our department, so to speak. And so I think that getting her to where I put her isn't where she should be. But I think it's a reasonable sum for the additional duties that she's taken over. So we have, again, had 0 turnover in a year where we switched county attorneys. And I think that the value to the county for just that is enormous. This team stuck it out through me learning a new job. And I'll tell you right now, you can ask any of them. I was grumpy. I was not fun to be around. So, I mean, imagine for a second, I come to them and I say, well, you've got to do now these 3 or 4 additional things. And I'm going to be a complete, I'm going to be grumpy when it happens. And they took it and they didn't ask any questions. They didn't complain. And so I think that that's an incredible value to the county. Sometimes counties have conflict cases where, for one reason or another, there's a witness that I couldn't prosecute a case. I have to ask somebody else to prosecute it. And during this year, we accepted conflict cases from Polk County, Jasper County, and Mahaska County. And, that may not mean much to people who aren't in this business, but what that tells me is these other counties look to us and say, we can send our cases there and know that they're going to be handled competently and do a good job. So I think that's a really important thing to look at, is that I think our reputation throughout the district has been maintained and is doing well also. So the staff, I have asked for 6% raise for Chrissy, Michelle, and Cheyenne. I think that is absolutely warranted. When you look at the job that Chrissy has done with our collections program, as well as being a victim witness coordinator. Again, we talk about people having multiple roles within a department. Those are only 2 of the many that she does. She does a great job with our collections. She is a leader throughout the state with being a victim witness coordinator, and you won't find a better one around. And not to mention her job of keeping me in line is probably the most important thing she does. So I think that she adds an incredible value to this county. And as far as Michelle and Cheyenne, our office has fluctuated with amount of staff from time to time, and it's been more than 3 at times. I think it's been as much as 5 with part-time help. And I'm not asking for any more help. We are perfectly staffed, but we need to compensate these people for what they do. It is something to go to someone and say, here's a video of a sex abuse happening on video, and say, okay, I need you to watch this. I need you to edit this. I need you to, make all these changes so I can present it at court. And that may require watching that video multiple times. And that is something that doesn't necessarily stay at work sometimes. And when you couple that with the confidentiality portion of this, if they make a mistake, that means I make a mistake. And a mistake can be fatal to a case. And so we have to get things right. We got to get them right the first time. And so what they're required to do, especially over this last year, is incredibly important. So anyway, I could go on forever,
No.
but, oh, I do want to say one more thing. I have tried over the last year to increase the civil support to the county. And that not only by being here on every other Tuesday, but I've gotten to know Steve real well. Tyler, Tyler's probably sick of me too. Missy, absolutely. So
We appreciate that, Jared.
Thank you, Jared.
that's one of the things that I've really tried to do is expand that. But when I do that, when I'm out here on Tuesdays, that means that somebody's covering my court cases in District Associate Court. We have court on Tuesday morning. So I sent an email out, just like I did this morning, saying, here's all my cases, guys, please take care of them for me. So there is a cost to that. You'll notice there is still an unfilled position there in the budget. I think we are operating where we need to right now. I'm not looking to add any attorneys. The reason why I left that there is because things can change quickly. And I don't want that to be a shock to the budget if, something happens and, we need to take on another attorney, but that won't happen without me coming to the board and having a discussion about that.
Appreciate
I
that, Jared.
appreciate- yeah, I
Thank you
appreciate
very
that
much.
clarity on that. I do wonder on our sheets, when like we have Lindsay or somebody go in, is there any way we can make marks on those? Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to know that. Okay.
And also, we have a note function in there as well, that if there's something you want to explain, you can type a little note and it'll show up as a red box.
Okay.
So absolutely. There's one comment, and this really applies, Jared, to you, because you and I have talked about it, but also to Jason's group. And Steve, I don't know if it so much for your rangers, but you're all certified law enforcement as well. The world has changed dramatically. The risks are changing. The society has changed. And in my conversation with you, Jared, was an eye opener for me, where I study trends. I have done that my entire career, and just looking at the numbers and the charts and graphs, but then hearing how it is really occurring, even in our safe little rural Marion County, and what's changing there is stunning to me. And what your folks have to deal with, and like you said, it's hard to unsee what you see. So anyway, much respect to your staff, Jason, to your folks, because the world is changing. And Steve, I'm sure you guys deal with it on a certain level because you're dealing with the public all the time. So we need to take that into consideration for these jobs, probably more than we've ever done. And so I thank you for highlighting that.
Thank you, Jared.
I just wanted to thank Jared also for stepping up into that situation, being appointed, going into that role. He's done a fabulous job. And what a lot of people don't realize, I mean, you think maybe the county attorney or his assistant county attorneys or something is a simple 8 to 4:30 job. It is not. I mean, we are constantly calling them at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning on asking about search warrants or running cases by them or different things. So that being available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is very, very much appreciated by myself and my staff along that. And Mark, you kind of hit it on the head. It's even with, I'm not going to go in the details of the case, but even within the last couple of days of me being here at the budget meeting, we're dealing with a 13-year-old child that ended up in another part of Iowa in a very, very bad situation. And so when you think about how great Marion County is, and which is fabulous, we're blessed to live in Marion County, but really horrific things still happen. I mean, and whether it be on a daily basis, but for sure on a weekly basis, they're dealing with it and holding people accountable. So thanks, Jared.
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments, and you have great staff, and that's like I said, the welcome I've gotten from law enforcement has been, we've got a great relationship between a prosecutor's office and law enforcement in this county. That's not the way it is everywhere.
I appreciate that.
I just have a couple more comments, and I promise I'm going to be about done, but if you could go to the next slide. One more, please. the Iowa Bar Association recently came out with a survey. I got it in an email just a couple weeks ago. And look, I'm not trying to compare apples to apples here. I think, a lot of these people are in private practice and things like that. But, it's important for the board and for everybody to know and consider when we're talking about lawyers, the median income for a lawyer in Iowa is $150,000, half or above, half or below. And the average is $198,000. So like I said, I'm not trying to compare apples to apples. Prosecutor jobs are different. There are other benefits that come along with this. But the reason why I want to highlight this is because continuity is incredibly important. We have a prosecutor crisis in Iowa. The County Attorneys Association is doing everything they can to get more prosecutors to come to Iowa because I don't know what's happening in law schools right now, but prosecutors are bad guys. And nobody wants to be a prosecutor when they graduate anymore. I don't know why that's a result or what that's a result of. I'm not sure. But there are a lot of counties that can't find county attorneys to run. There are a lot of counties that can't find assistant county attorneys. I think Jasper spent 6 months trying to find an assistant county attorney. And so it's incredibly important that we retain what we have because, just like you've heard throughout the week, getting somebody new, and I learned this firsthand this year, it's a lot of extra work. It's a lot of extra work for staff and everybody else to get everybody up to speed. And so I think that's the reason why I've asked for what I've asked for is to retain what we have, continue providing the service that we do to the county.
Jared, I got a question for you.
Sure.
When you have a county attorney that leaves, then if you have someone, you have an assistant or whatever, they're supposed to step in. But what happens if it trickles down and they don't want to stay? What happens to these counties that don't have a county attorney?
Well, it's not good. It creates a ripple effect through the system. You have backlogs of cases. I know some counties have asked other county attorneys to
Right.
come in and you have to pay for that service. And that, it doesn't really work that well. But it is a huge disruption to the system. And it's happening. It used to be when I was graduated law school, being a county attorney is something you really wanted to do. And there was a high demand for those jobs. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, there isn't anymore. So if if a county loses a county attorney, it can cause some real problems. So
Private practice, I'm assuming lures them, they can make more money, The billable hours, not always do attorneys want to do billable hours, but they can make quite a bit more money. So in the billable hours.
Well,
look,
there's a tension there. When you look at the legal profession, Jared, and I'm sure you've seen this, I've had friends do this where even in private practice, they're leaving. Because to work 90 hours a week and bill for it is not fun. But the dollars are there.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
To pay off the student loans and that.
Well,
kind of
yeah.
things, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
there's all of that. And I know Joy, Ross, we've all had job offers this last year. We all have. Some of us have standing job offers, but and that's the other thing that just is so remarkable to me is that this team stuck together through this. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I think that is good
And that
too.
says your leadership. So we thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions for Jared? Steve?
No, thank you, Jared, for everything.
Thank you.
Jared, thank you very much. All right. Let's do a 15-minute recess and get some coffee and take a little break and come back and start to wrap this thing up. How's that sound? How about after? Is that okay? Will that work? All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to go into recess.
Second,
Ramey,
Aye?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
aye.
All right. Renee, we back on? Ready? All right. Entertain a motion to reconvene.
Make motion, we reconvene?
Second?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye. All right, we are back in session. Missy, you had some items you wanted to present to the
I
board,
just
so.
wanted to address a few comments that have come up over the last few days. There's been lots of discussion about ranges as far as office staff and, department heads and those kinds of things. And so the first thing I want to address is last year, and obviously you can tell by the fact that my salary has fallen, 5 to 8,000 below any other department head in Marion County of like size in years. I haven't been in here asking for significant raises. Last year, my goal was to get a salary set, a range set that I could hire, and it was a decent salary for a new staff member. Carrie started in November, so we didn't utilize all of that. We started her at 47, and my hope was to bring her up to 50 without raising that line item. So it gives her a good raise without having to raise that line item. But like I said, what I did focus on in looking at numbers, and they all led to the same area of I'm 5 to 8,000 below the other departments in Marion County of like size. I'm, as Keisha alluded, I'm about 15% below what, if you put the range of numbers I gave you as far as other counties of like size. And I can also tell you that jobs that were posted for my position with a number of years experience range from 72 to 150,000 in Iowa. So with that, I also kind of gave you, I worked in Marion County in the day where if we wanted to support something, a request, we had to figure out where it was coming from. And that's where I gave you, because we set up a separate line item for the comprehensive plan, which is going to be a benefit to all of Marion County, not just Marion County zoning. I did then take down that other line item from 36.5 down to 25.5. I mean, there is the ability to drop it down to 20, which would then, without that project, would only be a 1.4% increase. And so I guess my ask is, I feel like, you said it best, Mark, the job has gotten more and more complicated. This year I served 6 stop work orders. I went toe to toe, not packing a gun with people and telling them, no, this isn't, this is not what the ordinance says, and this is not allowed. The one thing I know Brian or Tyler's people tell me, and people in public say, man, I wouldn't want to do your job. I don't tell people always what they want to hear. And I guess I'm not one that likes to stand up here and toot my own horn, but I see where other people who work under other boards or under elected, there's these more significant type of increases than those of us who have 23 years of longevity under the Board of Supervisors. And so my request is that you would at least consider the request I put in for this position, not just for myself, but moving forward, this position does warrant, I mean, yes, I have the help of the county attorneys, but I have to know what I'm telling people and go by the book to keep Marion County, I mean, out of law issues. So
And
I
Missy,
guess that's my request.
if I could add something, I do know the planning and zoning worlds that I have dealt with and the people. I actually know of a gentleman that went to law school and is the planning and zoning director because of what it takes. So I understand your ask and I respect that.
And I guess
So-
I've continued to also be, assist another department without compensation, as they, learn to get that, I don't know what the succession of that is gonna be, but I've continued to do that without compensation for another, assistant of the department. I'm always there. A lot of times I get phone calls that say, well, we know you're not the department, but so-and-so said you're gonna be able to help. And I'm always, I guess I feel like the one thing I don't ever tell people is no. I will try and find them an answer. If I can't answer it, I'll figure out who can. And I feel like like I said, my salary keeps dropping lower and lower. It's more in line with what, I'm gonna say second in commands are and not department head anymore.
Yeah, we
I
do have
appreciate
some
it. Appreciate it,
deputies
Missy.
that are making more
Yeah.
than.
No,
yes.
thank you, Missy. Do you have any
And I'd
questions
say-
for Missy?
Deputy meaning not deputies, law
Right,
enforcement.
right.
So.
Steve?
Well, yeah, I have one question, and I think we've kind of discussed this. Would you be willing, since you have the new help, would you be willing to take on the duties of floodplain administrator within your office? 'Cause I think it more fits that department.
I don't think it's out of the question at this point. I always told Tyler no before because I was a Department of One and I was, through this year, I've tried to get 2 ordinances updated and get all the other things done, but I'm not. Yes, I guess at this point, I mean, I've worked closely with Brian and I would need obviously guidance from them and I know that there's trainings that have to be done. I'm not sure what all that entails.
I guess this kind of relates back to what I said about trying to get equity built within our own organization. And I know we've had this discussion, Tyler thought, didn't you say earlier that you thought that fit more with zoning, floodplain administration?
Yes, so, yeah, my correspondence was to evaluate over the next year, and I get we're discussing.
I think I've
budget.
heard this one before.
Yeah.
I've heard this story
Yeah, so
before.
again, I apologize, Missy.
Well,
So Tyler's meeting with people trying to pawn off parts of the road department
Yeah.
what
and
I'm-
not telling anybody.
what I'm trying to do is, we only have so many dollars to work with, so I'm trying to get these dollars spread to where it makes it more equitable within our organization.
Yeah, and the reason I brought up the possibility of shifting those duties in the future, because we did reduce staff in our office
Mhm.
over the last few years, and Brian and Tammy and Mike have all taken on additional duties, and when these things don't necessarily align with our primary functions as a road department, then yes, I was looking for other.
Well, I'm
Alternative.
trying to fund everybody's requests here.
Well,
somehow.
Well, what Steve is, and why I really appreciate what Steve is saying here, and Tyler, what you guys are talking about is, it's a net, it has a net, impact to the budget of 0.
Right.
I mean, if we're just trying to realign duties to ensure that we've got the right people doing the right jobs, well, money's already allocated in the budget for those activities. So you still get the raises you're thinking about, but from a budgetary perspective, it doesn't change the end result. So I think that's an excellent approach,
I mean, it's just
to try to
throwing it out
align
there.
duties with departments, but yet, you
Um,
get the dollars that go with it.
That
So,
would be a 3.1% right off the bat
Yeah.
of your ask.
so
Yeah,
But-
This year, it's already, I mean, it'd be a transition. because
you'd have
this
to
year
think
it's
about
already-
it through
yeah.
the course of the year to do that, if that's a
Yeah.
proposal. But when we talk about raises, we're gonna get to that next. We've got some tough stuff to deal with here. But we can certainly add those. I've got some notes, I'm sure everybody does, on those things that would help get people to some of the asks that they've got in their budgets. But it's a workload issue too now, because you're taking on the additional workload.
Yeah, we already have those appointments for calendar year 2024, and through that, we were going to evaluate the demands of
Right.
those and responsibilities of those 2 positions.
So it
of
wouldn't
CDL and
happen right
police.
now. It would happen as you evaluate, and if that makes sense to move
Yeah,
those.
I believe that was my
duties.
correspondence for you, something to consider during this budget session, but to evaluate moving forward for calendar year 2025.
Yep, very good.
Yeah, I
Jason?
think there's also, Miss spoke about it a little bit earlier, but it would probably have to take effect after July. It'd be this budget cycle, but there's probably even other areas that could accomplish the same type areas or the task of that. So I'm happy you guys are talking about that or having that
Well, I just
discussion.
floated out there so we can get this conversation started here.
What's that?
I just floated out so we can get. this-
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a
That's
good, I think there's other areas that can save money in county budget by that reorg also. So yes, I'm glad you guys are considering it.
Yep. Absolutely. Good. Missy, thank you. Thank you.
Missy.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, that concludes all the presentations. Now it's wrap up time, and wrap up could go on for a while. But let's deal with comp board first. Kind of hangs out there separate of the issues. It's dealing with a small group of employees, but it has a significant impact. Remember, the comp board recommendations are not presently contained within the budget. Is that correct, Jake?
Not directly, like, I can only use like my department. I think I heard from most of them. I think a lot of departments have like a 5% placeholder.
Sure. So there's a component
So
in
it's
there.
not, if it's accepted at 100%, there'll have to be an increase, but it's not, I mean,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
I know what
And
you're
if it
saying.
goes to zero, then the, but I
Yep.
think most departments have 5% placeholder.
Okay, very good. Board discussion. Yeah, discussion, comp board. Do you have that up, Lindsay? Yeah, we should probably pull that up.
So I actually changed it again since I sent it to you. Sorry. Can you give me a second? Can you share? I gave you a few more options
Oh.
at the bottom,
Okay,
after we had some discussion
Yes.
in the back while you guys were talking.
perfect.
If you can share your screen with me, then I'll pull it up.
Sounds good. Thank you. We just need to be able to run some scenarios like we've done in the past, Lisa. Good. All right, that's what we need. Thank you. We can wait. Anybody have some bumper music? Well, I've heard Keisha start singing too, so I mean, the two of them could kind of do a duet
I
thing.
better stick to my day job, and that's not the big.
All right. All right, we've got something on the board. And
So,
this is what we've done in the past. We've looked at this spreadsheet in the past, and it has different, from the total that was presented, filed and submitted. The top one, if I'm remembering this right, Jake, that's if we accept 25% of the recommendation.
Yeah, I believe so. I think Lisa's, I mean, inputted these based off of prior year's worksheets. The
Right.
theory is
Right.
just to give a variety because of the two different, I'm not sure what all the is on here, if it's percentages or just these two, but yes.
Are there more on here, Lisa?
there are more options up at the top.
Okay.
Hang on.
So yes,
So this is,
those are the accepted percentage of the recommendation. I'll let Lisa speak. 'cause she
Okay, so
knows.
this is reduce it by 5.5%, reduce it by 0.75%. And then we just go incrementally from there.
but then also in the blue, you'll see, approving 25% of the recommended 65, 100, and then I just added,
A third and a quarter.
30 and a 40, just to kind of give you a little more.
So is it in 1% increments?
Well, we can do it any way Steve, we can do it any way we want, but if you accept, but I'll say it this way, if you accept 25% of the recommendation, you're reducing the recommendation by 75%. Okay? So that's what that means, and we can go from there. Discussion, thoughts? You kind of heard where I'm at yesterday, so let me just reiterate. I'm in that between 70 to 80% reduction in the recommended, in what the comp board recommended. And we've gone, I stated that yesterday, and I'm still there.
About 70 to 80% reduction?
I can't, Keisha, I know you said zero, I can't quite get to zero. But, cause I want to give, the other staff something.
And this is the struggle. The struggle is I don't want to deal with this year after year. And I don't know how to make it an understanding. We can't have this. This is terrible on us. This is terrible morale on all of us. But if we do something like this, then how do we look at, I mean, if you're looking at a roughly CPI of I think CPI, looked this morning, 3.2. I mean, are we looking, if we're giving, our elected, some of them, sheriff would get close to that, right? 75% reduction.
So go to the 25% recommended one, Lisa. There you go. So
Okay.
that's what it would look like
And-
at a 75% reduction.
And his staff, that's tied to this would get that also. I mean, are we looking at giving some of the others, CPI that are over 85% or 85,000? I mean, those are all questions that I have in my mind
So how do you want to sort it out?
and that's why I'm just talking about it. I mean, if we're looking at how we have this increase of 85,000, wage, and it's increasing substantially, are we going to save some dollars by saying, all right, we're not giving increases there and then giving it to those below 85,000? I don't know. I mean,
Well, I think that I'll answer that for you. That flattening, I'll borrow a COVID phrase, flattening the curve on your higher paid individuals, which absorb more of your salary dollars and have had accelerating rates of increase, will reduce your total salary dollar allocation if we bring these top end folks down and hold them down over a period of years. It's not just a 1-year deal, because the acceleration post-COVID has been substantial. So it means we have to hold them at a much lower rate and allocate those dollars to your under $85,000 staff members. The dollars just don't accumulate as fast
Right.
because they're not making as much.
Right.
So that's going to cause the salary line at least to level out over time.
and then I'd also like to say, if we add that within the last 2 years with what the sheriff's department has received, that would average out to about 11%. Is that correct? We add if you add the last 2 years, we've given approximately 27 or 28%, and then you added another 3. So divide by 3 years would be,
You get a
Yeah.
3-year average of
yeah.
that.
So,
But I think for me, if you go back to that chart that I showed about the acceleration, you don't have to pull it up. You all remember what it was. We have to, as a board, there's really, like I said, 2 issues for me. Number one, we have to lower the acceleration of our higher paid employees in terms of wage growth. And what we've heard during the course of these discussions from almost everybody is that our staff members who are making lower wages need more money. Heard that from a variety of places. And I can show on my chart as to why that is. So when you're talking about finite resources, we need to readjust those dollars to those individuals if that's been accurate for what's been presented to us. And I feel from what I've talked to many of you about that it is. But because of the pool, and it's a finite tax pool, that means dollars have to go from one thing to another.
and
So that's why I'm in this range, because it's the only thing that will begin to put and slow that down. The second reason is this, I'm sorry, Keisha, I'll let you talk here in a minute. Legislatively, because this is a legislative constraint on us, we have to push back a little bit. We see the issue. Everybody sees it. I appreciate the advocacy that we've heard from the various departments for their staff. I think that's wonderful. I think we have a great staff and we have great managers in general. We've said that consistently. But the legislature has to hear us. And we need you, especially as officers who are involved in Des Moines, you have to carry that message too. Because that's what's caused this. There's been a misalignment for, and I'm not picking on any one department, but they did a political thing to score political points, and it's misaligned how we allocate money. So if we don't put the brakes on that misallocation will just continue. And pretty soon your lower paid people won't get any raises. No matter how hard you advocate, because we'll be paying, some of these positions will be $200,000 a year positions. So those two reasons are, for me, why we've got to slow that acceleration down. Keisha, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then there's a caveat with the county attorney. I believe the code reads that his recommendation, we have to consider his recommendation a little bit different way. I don't know. And maybe he's on, maybe he can explain that.
What does
but,
that mean? don't know what that
there's,
means.
there's something in his code, because I remember Ed's going about this, about what he is proposing for his county attorneys, that we have to consider. So, I don't know. I'd
Yeah,
have to
I-
bring up the code.
Yeah, I
And,
don't know what that is.
yeah.
And I'm not going to consider him separately unless somebody can.
But I mean,
Cite
there
something that
is
requires it.
something, there is some recommendation. I do know that. and
I do think this, though, to that point, it is okay to listen to some of the differences in the departments, apart from code, and say, do we have to do some different things? I think the sheriff's advocacy for his department is correct. I agree with the 8% for his staff outside of the comp board recommendation, and I'm fine with that. I respect what they do, and I'm okay with that number. And there have been some other places where people have asked for different numbers. We have that within our power to say we want to allocate those things in different ways. We don't just have to go 5% buckets across the board or this percent. We can be creative to deal with specific issues if that's the desire of the board.
Yeah, I firmly believe the second floor, we need to increase those salaries to the minimum of 40,000. I like you know, so I do think that that's important. To
so-
those that are below 40,000.
So Keisha, would you say for the second floor folks, are you thinking 40,000 and then an additional whatever the raise is within the budget, or just increase to 40,000, normalize there, and then see where we go? What are you thinking about?
Well, I think that when I reviewed some of them, I believe all of them have put in to make them so they're over 40,000. Is that correct? Michaela, you had some of them, you had 6% because that got them above 40,000. I know Jake had to increase a little bit more because that put him over 40. I believe when I looked at Naomi's, with the increase in what she was doing, that would put them over 40,000.
Do we have a,
For,
can-
for me, the two that I have under 40,000, the 5% would put them at 39.9.
Right, and so
So
you asked for 6.
I would like a little bit extra just to bump them over
so
that hump.
we can, and if that's a desire of the board, we can be creative and think about it in those terms. This year's going to be a little different than in the salary side. I think you can sense that. Because of the dollars, because of what the state has done to us, and because frankly, just where the economy is going, we're going to be a little more prescriptive on certain areas on exceptions or changes. So I think that's what you're getting a sense of. And I think that's okay. We have to hear this and be creative. I do need to know this though, since we're throwing this out, for those second floor positions that are under 40, to normalize them at 40, what are we looking at in terms of total dollars? Is there a way to do the quick math on that?
I think they're all in there
It's like
currently.
3,600 for me. It's like $3,600 for me.
I
Yeah,
think they have it in
Michaela.
their budget. Put it in.
Well, but I want to know what the offset is, because again, if we're taking a $210,000 recommendation and saying we don't want that, and we're offsetting, we will take those dollars out and reallocate those dollars, eventually you run out of that pie too. And we need to also think about some of the other things that have been asked for salary differential as well. Otherwise, you could end up having more money allocated. Kim?
Can we make this a discussion that is countywide and not just based on where you're officed? Because we have also some staff members that are under 40 at public health.
Yeah, well, if we start doing that, we got it, that's real dollars. So I need to know what that dollar amount is. We can't just say, hey, sure, we'll normalize at 40, and suddenly we're talking about 25 staff people. Okay, all right. So let's do this first. We're kind of off. To me, we can do this separate of comp board. Let's deal with comp board. And then we'll go from there, because that is a separate issue.
What's 80%? If you reduce it to 80%? Does it get below? Is it,
Take it down 8, do you
Yeah.
want to?
yeah, is it like the sheriff's 2.99 or
can you-
something?
Can you take that to 20? Is that,
Yes.
does that,
Yeah.
capture that? Sure. Sure, absolutely.
Fine.
And if you know how to do the formula, right? All right, I'm just checking. Not putting you on the spot, Lisa. Steve, you got any thoughts on the comp board?
Well,
You've been processing over there.
I was initially more in the range of the 40% acceptance. Cause I didn't really want to, I didn't want to hurt anybody.
So,
too
so
bad.
reduced by 60?
Yeah. And
Except,
you're reducing by 75.
yeah, accepting 25 of it. But we can talk about, we can run those numbers and do the rationale. That's,
I just think we have to think about that it keeps increasing those salaries, and we have several of them that are tied to the sheriff that are going to be.
Well, we're going to have that problem until
But
we meet
it's-
that legal requirement.
well, again, remember, the legal requirement of the comp board, if there are no changes next year, is the methodology they use. They haven't changed what our responsibility is. So we can go round and round the comp board, back the blue system for a long time, but the Board of Supervisors can still make those adjustments. And they keep coming back and asking for whatever they ask for. And then you keep making the adjustments. So that right now is the system for all intents and purposes. Lisa, you ready yet? Sorry. Do you need Lindsay? Sorry, I'm just.
You're fine. No worries.
Oh, sure. Absolutely, Jason.
I appreciate Supervisor McComb's, thoughts on even the 60% or different things. But please just, the last thing, consider, you just had the county attorney that was up here speaking, in regards to what a great job he is doing. Ross's position is connected with his. You have Jake and Danny's positions connected there. You have other places.
Yep.
If you go to the 80% on different things, I think you're going to be below a 1% increase for those people. I mean,
Well, yeah, because
yeah.
75 is right about one.
Yeah.
I
and
That's the
don't
shade.
like it. I don't like it either, but
Well,
it's.
Yeah,
it's
and I-
better,
I
we've
just-
been
And
paying
we'll
for
play,
it.
we'll play with some
Yeah.
numbers, Jason. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I get it. And I'll be honest, I mean, Jason, I'll stand by what I said before. The same would be true of any of you officers that have associations. Help us out at the legislature. Don't lobby for yourselves. Lobby for the whole group,
100% agree.
because what they do then is they use us as the foil. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. That's ethically wrong. I will stand by that all day long. I mean, we've got a lobbyist for Marion County that we paid for. I heard from Ken Rosenboom last night that that is a great strategy. Totally thinks that's the right thing to do. And we should be thinking about this holistically on how to get it so everybody gets compensation. I feel like we've got the brain trust over there. At least Keisha didn't ask for like 78.15.
All right.
Ah, got it. Got it. I thought there was an active spreadsheet, Jake, where we could change percentages on it. Can we, all right,
Tyler,
all right. all right.
Tyler, I've got a question for you. Can you have the mic, please?
She's going to ask you what other parts of your department do you want to give to other people?
No, I'm not. Remind me again what you asked for your employees.
So, a 6% bucket.
Okay.
And that will, I have 3 positions within the department that I wanted to bring up for that wage equalization to the 21st percentile. Everyone else will be at 5. 5 will be was the budgeted baseline.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that I'm looking at it now, and I think I misspoke in my budget meeting. Our impact for departmental wage increase was 0.6% because I reduced 2 full-time staff. It was 1.6 for the benefits.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I had those reversed in
Okay.
my budget meeting.
Okay, very good.
And
Thank you.
then, Jason, on regarding yours on this 8%, are we, I mean, for your dispatcher, jailers, and your deputies that aren't tied to your salary, then are we looking at, I mean, is that gonna get them at a base wage?
I think it definitely cuts into it, yes. I think, I mean, what you heard the other day, it's not gonna be the highs of what they presented, in regards to that, but it's definitely gonna cut that difference.
Because we
for 'em.
can't, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to, can't come next year and be like another 8%, and we're like, oh, so.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's definitely gonna be a step in the right direction for them.
Yeah, Jason's math, and I had to think about this a little bit, but when I think of replacement of staff and what they've been doing, that cost is, I
We
mean,
eat a lot,
we eat a lot of cost over the several years,
right?
and we have to be mindful of that. Okay. Okay. Well, let's look at the difference between the 60.
Yeah,
I'll
you
just-
guys can't get it. I
hey.
mean, okay, thank you.
Let's just look at the difference between a reduction. Steve, you said a reduction of 60%. Keisha had a reduction of 80. I had a reduction of 75. So we're all
I
in
just
the,
wanted to see the numbers.
yeah, let's look at the numbers and see where we fall. what do we got here, folks? We've got, that's 80, right? This is 80, so Keisha right behind you. That's your 80. Okay. So that's the 75.
Is your total percent increase on the 80, right?
So
Yeah, I'd be less than that on those percentages.
All you did was
I just changed the column.
you changed this calculation.
Yes.
Right?
Nothing else close.
And it gets you to
This
the
one
final,
to this.
final salary at a 75. Is it still 75?
I have to start all over.
Yeah, I probably just built each one as I went,
Yeah, it's
so it should flow through.
So so we do 10, we do that. $10,000 total.
If, I think if they go down too, do they have the 40%? Because that might be Steve's on, I think, like, there's the,
Yes.
oh,
Go down. There's the 30 or whatever.
I added the 30.
Yeah.
And go up, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay, all right. All right, I think I mean, you got a ballpark on where everything's at. So what do you want to do?
Well, I'm still at the 40-60.
Okay, you want to make a motion?
I don't know how to figure out how to word it.
That you want to accept the comp board, or you want to accept 40% of the comp board recommendation?
Yeah. I make a motion that we accept 40% of the comp board recommendation.
And that puts that at. Do it again.
So go back to that. The 40%, there you go. Is there a second? I think it dies for lack of a second, Steve. Good motion, though. Good motion. Isha, do you have one?
Go back to the 25.
25%, Lisa? This would be a 75% reduction on the recommendation. You think it's closer to 13.9? Okay, so this number. So that's 13.5 total. They were trying to, yeah, trying to adjust it, so a little screwed up. But your total dollars would be about 13.5, right? Okay. I know it's hard. I can't lead with emotion, guys. It's up
No,
to
I
you.
know.
It's up to you two. Right.
Just give me a minute.
Are you volunteering, Danny? You thinking too much? Or you thinking too?
I'll make a motion to approve, the comp board recommendation of 25%.
So accepting 25% of the comp board recommendation. Correct.
Yep.
Second?
McCombs.
No.
Maybe.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Yeah, I just needed the total dollars. That's what I was looking at.
We'll get it.
Okay. Very good. I know that was hard.
It's very hard.
Well done. I mean, that's hard. Okay.
Yeah, I hate that we have to be put in this position.
And Steve's recommendation was not bad,
No,
a bad
it wasn't.
recommendation at all. Was not bad at all. So thank you for that. So we've got comp board, let's do lost. Let's go to lost and then we'll come back to just raises because we, like I said, I've got a whole notepad full of stuff.
Yeah, I got
Andre.
library too.
Okay. And so let's do lost and library. How about that?
So the lost, I think what we're referring to due to ballot language is how you divide the non-capital
Correct.
project side. And so original version one had a, we term it like it's as a 30-20, but always remember we're only talking about half. So it's, well, 30 and 20. So, at the end of the day, when you guys were talking about lost, you were talking about moving that all to the general fund.
Yes.
And so I believe Lindsay's spreadsheets has it bolded in green with the, different, what it would do into the totals.
And
So
Lindsay,
so for lost, it would not be this side of it. it's
correct,
The other side. of it.
correct. Can you show us what that green amount would be now if we
And-
go with that?
I mean, from a budget process and, we need to know so we can plug those in.
Yes.
Project fund balances. We will be bringing a resolution along with the other budget documents when we go through the process, resolving to those percentages so the treasurer's office clearly knows when.
Sure.
it's defined.
Sure. And remember, the final balance for Fund 2 this year would be then about 1.9 million. Is that correct, Lindsay?
Yeah, that's what I remember. Yep.
Okay. Okay, and that would take the general fund to? Okay. And that's with, and do we have the changes in interest in there as well? Okay, what are we now projecting for interest income?
Recall from last night, I believe it's at 610.
Okay.
We had it
Instead of
we-
110,000.
from 110 to 610.
But that's a little more accurate. Michaela and I talked at length last night, so that's good.
That
So a
is
little
into
bit
the
better.
general fund.
Yeah, no,
Little
I'm
bit-
fine with
That is
the
the general.
lost, those lost funds going to
And,
fund.
and again, remember in Fund Two, it's just easier to make those adjustments because it's not as volatile a fund. So if we need to add later on in subsequent years, a
Once you set
five,
your levy, that can't be adjusted for this year, but in following years.
Yes,
The-
following
the
years.
That levy does have a little flexibility.
Yep. Any thoughts? Keisha, are you okay with that? Steve?
I'm fine with that.
Jake, do we need a motion to accept, to do that?
I would just make a motion to allocate, the lost dollars to the general fund, non-capital project lost dollars to the general.
Okay. Is there a motion to do just that?
Make that motion. Do you?
Second.
Ramey?
Aye.
Johnner?
Aye.
McCombs?
Aye.
So that directs us to do exactly what is right and project that revenue at existing arrangements into that fund.
Very good.
And then in the future.
Very good.
For 1
Thank
year.
you. Thank you for that work. So let's talk libraries. Can we pull up the library chart? Now we're making progress. That. There we go. Oh. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Okay. So we know what the libraries have asked for. I think they've asked for the same, not really a specific allocation by library. They said they would take care of that based on some type of formula, based on circulation. But I think they were wanting to hold at the 95,000 in the aggregate in terms of the allocation. So thoughts?
I know you weren't there. I heard, you weren't at the, was it yesterday's meeting or day before? You weren't at the 95,000, correct?
I was not.
Okay. And I understand where you're coming from. I do think that we need to think about, some of these dollars above and beyond what we're required to do could help for salaries. I do think for planning sources for the libraries, we're gonna do this, we may need to think about stair stepping it down. So I come up with an idea of doing 85,000. And actually, I come up with the formula in which I would like to consider. So I took in consideration that we've helped Pella, we've helped Knoxville, and we've helped Pleasantville. So reducing them,
Just make sure
I just
you're
come
not
back.
talking about the specific library, that's the community in general.
Yes, we have helped
There-
the city of Pella and the city of Knoxville and Pleasantville with bonding outside the library. So taking in consideration of that, because Mark had spoke earlier and he's not incorrect. We have helped those cities and we do probably need to think about that. I did come up with somewhat of an idea that I thought could allocate some of these dollars. I wanted to take in consideration Bussey and Melcher Dallas, that we have not helped those cities. And so, I come up with a formula. I'm willing to spit it out.
Yeah. What is it,
If you-
Keisha?
okay.
What is it?
So Bussey, 5,700. Melcher Dallas, 6,300. Pleasantville, 12,000. Knoxville, 21,000. And Pella, 40,000. That would give a total of 85,000, reducing it by 10,000.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Steve, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I thought about that, and I was also at about around that 85 number mark instead of lower. I mean, and then I agree with what both of you have said. We have helped those communities,
Mhm.
and we have not financially contributed
Right.
to the others, so, Yeah, I don't have a problem with the 85 and I don't have a problem with the formula.
Okay. Well, and again, I'm open to having those discussions. I think that's great to think about it. I'm glad we're kind of in agreement about coming down. I think that's good. I was more in the $70,000, $75,000 range and equally distributing it across all libraries. That would raise up your rural libraries. It would certainly reduce your two city libraries. But we have given significant support to those cities through bonding. So that was more my
Mhm.
theory behind it. So I think we've kind of said it all, what everybody wants. So is there a motion
So moved.
on
On-
Keisha's,
Mine?
On
Yeah.
Keisha's proposal.
Steve has moved that we should have libraries.
Do you want me to repeat it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. So my proposal would be, 5,700 to Bussy. Melcher Dallas, 6,300. Pleasantville, 12,000. Knoxville, 21,000. And Pella, 40,000. Of a total of 85,000.
I'm going to second that.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
And I. Very good. Thank you. Very good. All right. Oop, I need that sheet still. Okay, that takes care of libraries, lost. And now we're back to raises. Now, remember what we talked about? We've got some individual requests from departments. This is going to take a little bit of nuance here. Think about those requests. Why don't we start off, and I think we probably should do this individually. Let's start off. Jason had a specific request for 8% for anybody not linked to the comp board. Thoughts, board?
Well,
I'm supportive of it.
after hearing the presentation of, from the other two, I'm supportive of that also.
Okay, is there,
Helps the boots on the ground, yes.
I mean, that, we keep banging on retention. I think we need to step up and hopefully we can fund it, but I'm in favor of
okay,
that.
is there a motion? Yeah, that you are
Yeah,
approving an 8% raise for the sheriff's department for all positions not related to the comp board.
What he said, Jake.
Recording this.
Okay, good. I'll second.
It's all non-comp board positions, 8%.
Yes,
Correct.
or as the sheriff has budgeted.
As budgeted, yes.
8% budget. That's
Yeah,
motion.
yes, yes.
Motion by Steve.
Motion by Steve, second by Keisha.
Ramey,
Aye?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, next one. Kind of on an exception basis. County Attorney. Jared made an interesting presentation this morning. He's asking for something a little different than just a 5% bucket for his staff. Can we pull up the county attorney's sheet again, just so we have that?
Can I interject here just a second? Here is the final 25%, just so people can see
there
what
you
the
go.
rate for the comp board.
A little over 1% for everybody, except for sheriff at 3.63.
Yep.
Okay.
I didn't know if you wanted that up or
I
not, so
appreciate that, Lisa. Thank you.
thank you.
We'll pull Jared's presentation up, since that's kind of fresh in our mind. His budget, sorry. Yeah, he asked for 6, so let's go put that at 6. And see what that looks like. Got it? How about salary regular employees? Do you have to change?
He did. He-
Okay, all right. So let's go to the bottom, please.
And obviously his will change if the percentage in
The
which
comp.
we, yeah.
I don't think he budgeted for comp board, though.
He had, oh, I don't know, I guess.
He probably didn't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet he didn't.
Five, he had five up there.
He had
but-
5 in there. Yeah.
Yes, one of them that's not filled. Yeah, he has an opening
I
position.
think it's an open,
Oh, Joy's percentage, yes. Hang on.
that's good, good catch, Sheriff. Does he have something in there separate for Joy?
I gotta find my sheets.
Which Jared had, still here.
Yes, I'm here.
Good.
It's 98 for Joy, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay. That's a, okay, going up 20,000 for Joy.
well, I'm asking for a 10% increase of her current salary.
All right, what's her current salary, Jared?
78, isn't that correct? Yeah, that is increased, yeah.
Joy's current salary is 89,500.
I think there was some, jump in just for a second, confused. During transition from last budget to this budget, and some cleanup on each individual person and where the line comes from. And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, there was some mid-year adjustment. But that's why that particular line item is a higher salary.
That's correct.
All right, so we're gonna go off budgeted actuals then. That's what I'm gonna look at. All right, can you scroll down, Lindsay? So overall department increase at that proposal, 7.5, and Jared is holding all of his other expenses essentially flat.
Right,
This
and
is,
he has a built-in position in case things change.
Yes.
So he's not, most likely not going to use the.
Yep. So, board,
I have no problem.
Steve?
Nor do I.
All right, is there a motion to accept the county attorney's budget as presented?
I move we approve the county attorney's budget as presented.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jared. All right. Now we've got the issue of employees below $40,000. Michaela raised that during her presentation. Since that, we've had several others ask for it to be expanded throughout the county, through all departments that are below that salary line. Thoughts? And we're flying a little blind here. We don't
I don't
have
know what that number
aggregates.
is.
We
Well,
don't
yeah,
know what
have
the
that
number is.
And I also think that we need to think about, I think second floor is the busiest. I think they see the most people.
Can-
So that's where I come up with that.
Can I make a suggestion, though, on this one? And again, it's because I need to see numbers in the aggregate. I don't like just saying yes to something and I don't.
No,
know.
yeah,
I agree.
I
Can-
understand what you're
can-
saying.
Can we think about the raises that have been asked for as presented in the budgets, deal with those, and then we will make a commitment to come back to the various departments, Michaela's and the others that Kim has raised, and see if there's a dollar amount we need to get to. Now, I think in Michaela's, you put 6% to get your people to that level.
Correct.
Right, I gave the comparison of what a 5% down the road would be, and also what a 6%
Correct.
down the road.
Correct. So we
Um,
can certainly accept
but-
the 6% for Michaela because that's in her budget. She's,
Right, and really reducing Kristen's salary and my salary, right there, you freed up way more dollars
I-
than
I-
what I
yeah.
accounted
Yeah.
for in the 6%.
oh yeah, I realize
I
that.
think all those
We
departments.
we didn't reduce your salary.
What, yes,
The
I
Iowa
apologize.
Your
legislature.
salary is not reduced. Yeah, that's right, Steve. Good catch.
Yeah, at least let me keep my current salary.
So I think from Michaela's, we can deal with what she has presented, probably the same way we just dealt with Jared. And then we'll come back and look at these other positions
Yeah,
accordingly.
that
Does that
sounds-
sound fair?
Yes,
I
yeah.
think those, they've already built that in, so, in their budgets, so yes, I agree.
Okay. All right. So let's just kind of deal with it the same way. Let's take the treasurer's budget.
I make a motion, we accept the treasurer's budget as presented.
I'll second.
I didn't bring near enough sheets. So that was Steve.
Yes, and then Keisha.
Mark.
Aye.
Keisha.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Let's think about Missy and what she has asked for. Little different. She made a request and presented that to the board. Thoughts? Can you pull Missy's up?
I have no problem with what Missy's asked. I think I know to replace, would cost us a lot, and her experience is imperative. And to align her with what other department heads are making, I think it's only equitable.
Steve? And you had a proposal to shift part of the road department to Missy, right?
Mm-hmm. But we
Okay.
can't,
Can't go right this minute.
but we can't do that right now, right? We can't just do that. You talked about reducing one of your line items. Yep. I don't have.
What are we doing? Let me just see the dollars here. Nice. Yeah,
I just think, I just want everybody to know that we're trying to make this equitable for everybody.
all right, Missy, let me just ask you a question. So your 10%, yeah, that's less than 7,000.
And again,
And-
Carrie's is built in because we already had that, we built in the range. Didn't hire her at the max, and so that one was already built in without increasing.
Okay,
So it's just a little over 6 to get her to that. Yeah,
okay.
So
All right, I'm supportive of this.
Me too.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Missy's budget as presented.
Second,
John.
Aye.
Nicole.
aye.
Aye.
can I clarify then, do I need to reduce that line item? Is that the,
Yes.
Yes,
can
yeah.
reduce-
okay,
Yes.
okay, to
Yes,
clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
thanks, Missy. Okay. Are there any other exceptions, unique things that I'm dealing with here? HR and IT, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's deal with HR first. Lisa? So Lisa's got a 5 and a 10,
I have a 6 and a 10.
or 6 and a 10, sorry.
I can make the argument all day long, just like everybody else. I can go somewhere else, make more money. I can drive. I choose to stay here. I've told you before, I love my job. I love the people that I work with. And I'm not sure I'd like HR anywhere else. So but yeah, to replace me and to replace Renee, you would, it would cost you a lot more.
Yeah.
I-
Scroll down the bottom.
It's the same for everybody.
But we're still open to the idea of you taking over part of the road department, right?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay.
Nobody has approached that, and I am totally willing to do that. And I know that Renee is willing to take on anything that we throw her way.
Yeah. I always hesitate here because I'm pretty close to this department since I put her in this position. And I know she's done an outstanding job, and Renee has to deal with me, not just Lisa.
Boy,
So,
that'd be worth it.
I mean, I don't have any issues, but I'm gonna leave it to you two to decide.
Just go back up again, look at the.
Yeah, in terms of total dollar change, I don't have any issues with this. For what they do on the health plans and work comp and managing those things, yeah.
Lisa, would you be open to a 5% increase?
Yeah, she already said that.
I would be gladly take, I will take a 5% if you don't cut the 10 for Renee. I would make, absolutely. I think that's reasonable.
That's fine, yeah, yeah.
Nope. This, if you reduce me to 5, I'm totally fine with that. I'm very grateful for that. But I would ask that you keep Renee at 10. I think that's fair. Thank you.
I don't know how to make that motion.
Just, are we changing that? What are we changing that to?
Just her line to the 5%.
So we're accepting the HR budget with Lisa's salary at a 5% increase and Renee's at a 10.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Who am I missing now? We have IT. Can you pull up the IT sheet? Yeah, let's see what we're. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not there.
I can't do, and I told him that before, I can't do the increase of that large of amount. You know, I oftentimes wonder if we need to not look at like a little bit of stair stepping with him. I do know that IT is one of those positions that when you go to replace it is expensive. But he doesn't have the experience in that position as director for very long. So the 5% before, Lindsay, what did you have? What was that then totaling?
Yes, 5% off current. Because that one, remember that 108 is Andrew's old South. That's
Correct.
A1.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that also.
No, I don't.
I mean,
I think, I appreciate what Andrew does, but new to the position, we just got a bump taking the role. So that within a year's time frame, that's a pretty good increase in total. So I think time will tell, and then we'll make the adjustments accordingly.
yes, I appreciate everything he does. I mean, I'm hoping we can stair step him up every year.
Yeah.
I just don't, yeah, and I appreciate that. I want to give him a shout out too. I did earlier with the county attorney, but Andrew, the IT side of it for my office is huge. And I just wanted you guys to know that also. He's also one of those 24 hours a day, 7 days a week guys.
Yes.
I felt I should say, his whole office staff is very, very much appreciated by us. So whatever you can do, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jason. Now, is there also a new position in here? Or a
There's-
vacant
And we
position?
put that in last year.
Yes,
There
we
was a
did.
position, but he had to come before us before to
So
hire.
how do
So,
you all feel about that?
well, can we look at
'Cause
that
was for an
amount?
engineer.
Yeah, and I need to know on the amount in which, did he increase that amount? I can't recall. from what it was already before in the budget last year. Yeah. I don't,
That's two positions,
Yes,
one filled, one not.
correct. Okay. So are we good with having an allocation for another ad? 'Cause that's what it would essentially say to Andrew is he can go ahead and hire. Yes. Yeah. And where's our GIS person? Okay, okay. So remember, IT really has Andrew, help desk, GIS.
and I know we had, last year, it was, we would be willing to put it in the budget, but you had to come before and ask before he's gonna do that.
Correct.
So I don't have a problem leaving it in there, but at this point, I'm not ready to just say, give him an okay to go hire a position for that, so,
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but you're okay leaving that dollar allocation?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay leaving that too.
Okay, so what we're saying is we're okay with Andrew's budget, other than we're 5% raise off of his current salary. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Mhm.
I'll make
Okay.
that motion.
Second,
Ramey,
Aye?
Johnner,
Aye.
McComb.
aye.
Okay. I think, have we dealt with all of the exceptions? Do we want to, is there anything, Tyler, in yours that we need to consider independently? You're the biggest budget.
I don't think so.
I think it was just as presented.
Yeah, I guess that would be up to you, you know, our,
You don't have, I'm just saying,
our over, keeping
Yeah.
in mind, our overall wage increase went up, you know, a fraction of 5%.
Correct.
But individually, our baseline was 5. There are various positions I was looking at more. Those will be reevaluated between now and July 1, including mine. You know, my salary is negotiable annually per my employee contract. Which I budgeted 5. I don't know that I'm there. You know, I reevaluate mine closer to when we do that in May or June. Something else I failed to mention earlier was there is some contingency in my wage budget that was included for a potential overlap due to retirement.
okay,
So that is included as well.
very good, thank you. Board, any other questions on any department budgets or any notes you might have that you want to address? Because if there aren't, then we would just accept the remainder of the county budget as presented. You sure can. Okay, that's good catch, thank you. Anything, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So this would be accepting the remainder of the county budget as presented. Now, remember, we still can talk
About the-
appropriations. And Jake, we always do that post-budget.
Yeah, we need a break from that, but yes, that's later.
And just so
We
you
have to
know,
Do what this year's one's first.
yeah, just so you know, I'm at an 85% appropriation.
We bringing you some stuff for this one and then we can see.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about it.
And here's the reason for that. When we talk expenses, all right, right now we're dealing almost exclusively with salaries and some of the salary issues you all have presented, okay? But focusing on the expense side is where we'll get additional savings potentially to again afford what we're talking about right now.
What we just did.
Yes. So we went a 90% appropriation last budget cycle. I would like to ratchet that down another 5%. That doesn't mean we don't spend what's in the budget. It means that the board gets additional visibility to those expenditures. And I think that's going to become increasingly important if this issue continues to remain an issue. Okay? So just so you know what I'm thinking about off the bat. But since that's later, we can make a motion to accept the remainder of the budget as presented.
I make a motion to accept the remainder of the budgets that we have not spoke about as presented.
Second,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
And we're going to deal with this, the 40,000 wage thing.
Yes.
At later.
That is correct.
When we get the numbers put together.
That's something I'll talk to Lisa about. She can get with various departments to start working on that. Okay? Anything else, board, for the good of the order? I want to thank the two of you, Jake, as always, Lindsay, Renee.
Yes. thank
Lisa?
you guys very much.
This was a different process for us, and thanks to all your hard work and consideration. To our department heads and everybody that presented, I know this was not easy, but thank you for what you spoke about. And we'll close the books on this one.
I'm
Is there-
hoping everybody,
Motion to adjourn.
I'm hoping everybody realizes that we listen to the retention problems that everybody has presented to us, and I hope we've addressed them best we can.
Very good. I'll second that motion. Jake,
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
We are adjourned.